Oh, hello. I was just meditating. I returned with a episode 2 Star Wars theme. Um, I know what you're thinking. Star Wars again? Really? Come on, obviously. If you check the back wall back here, you might see some figures and a poster on the other side. Well, posters. One, two, three posters over there. Some more figures on the wall up there. Um, and then Millennium Falcon. Well, I'll show you maybe later, possibly not. But this week's episode I read last week was Star Wars Infinities, A New Hope, and this week is Star Wars Infinities, Empire Strikes Back. It is written by. It should say out here. They're letting me down. Uh, it's written by. Script by Dave Land, pencil by David Fabry, inks by Christian Dalla Vecchia, colors by Dan Jackson, letters by Steve Dutro, cover pencils by Chris Bacalo, cover inks by Tim Townsend. The first, middle, and the third names were the easiest to pronounce. The other ones I had a hard time, as you could see. But this is not the Empire Strikes Back that you remember. In this universe, because as I said in last week's episode, these three novels are in their own like what if series. Last week was what if Luke missed the shaft in the Death Star. This week's episode, well, let me finish my train of tracks. Last week's what if Luke Skywalker missed the shaft and it led into a whole different events following that. Alderaan still getting blown up. Princess Leia becoming an agent of the Empire. Luke still being trained by Yoda. Yoda helps them go back to Coruscant and destroys Palpatine with the Death Star. Now this one had all the events from the original A New Hope is still intact, but in the start of the film, Luke gets saved by Han, by Tauntaun, by shoving him in there, and then they both live. But in this one, Luke dies. That's right. Luke Skywalker dies in the beginning. And he still has that vision where Obi-Wan pops up. It tells him go to the Dagobah system, go get trained by Yoda. But when he's saying it, Luke hears it and he tells Han, go to the Dagobah system, be trained by Yoda. And Han thinks he's the Jedi. So Luke dies. He takes Leia with him, and they go off to Cloud City, just like in the film, but with a twist. They don't go through the asteroid field in the cave. They go straight there. Boba Fett still follows them there. Uh, Solo gets help by uh, Lando, and then Lando helps them before Boba Fett shows up, and he ends up putting Boba Fett in carbonite instead of Han because he thinks Boba Fett's working with Jabba. So he fixes their hyperdrive. They go to the Dagobah system. While that's happening, Cloud City gets obliterated because um, Lando didn't realize that Boba Fett was working for Vader, and Vader goes and tells him, I want to talk to Boba Fett. He says he's not here. And he says Boba Fett was supposed to stall them while he arrived. He said, oh, he's working for you? And they're like, yeah. So he's not there? He's like, yeah, he's not there. It's like, oh, such a shame. So we'll destroy your planet. So Vader orders the system to be wiped out. which it does, unfortunately. And then Han and Leia go with Chewie, 3PO, and no, 3PO gets left behind. 3PO gets left behind, and Vader's stormtroopers find him, and they use him for. Well, Vader uses him to get information out of him, which he finds out that they went to Dagobah. So Vader goes to Dagobah. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Solo finds Yoda with Leia, and he tells him, "Oh, I'm supposed to be training Jedi." He's like, "Not you, her." And he's like, "What?" But Luke gave me the message. He's like, "No, you're a pirate through and through. You're no Jedi." But she has the blood of Vader. Luke was her brother. And then Han Solo's like, "Okay, I guess I'll go pay off my debt to Jabba." So he goes. Um, oh no, I messed up. Okay, it's coming back to me now because so Vader doesn't capture 3PO on Cloud City. He captures him in Tatooine because Han Solo goes back to Tatooine Chewie to try to pay Jabba back, but Jabba ends up not listening and having them capture Solo, and Solo ends up like instead of fighting a Rancor, he ends up fighting those Nexus cats from Attack of the Clones, and they end up beating it, and they escape, but they leave 3PO behind because no one cares about 3PO, and that's when Vader grabs him and gets the information out of him. And he tells him, "Do you know who made you?" He's like, "No, I don't. Their memory's lost all those years, blah, blah, blah." He's like, "Oh, I did." He's like, "Okay." Like, "Are you going to tell me what I need to know?" Like, "No, I can't." It's like, understandable. And then he, like, jabs the brain, and he ends up finding out that they're on Dagobah. So Solo goes to Dagobah to tell them, like, "Oh, yeah, we're free of Jabba's nonsense. He doesn't want anything to do with us." So he ends up going back. And Leia's being trained by Yoda, and Yoda gives her a lightsaber, which I don't know how he got it. It's not really explained very well in this. He just has it, and he's like, "Oh, here's a lightsaber. You could use it to make your own. You could use this component. You just find your crystal. There's a crystal in Dagobah." So she goes on the quest to find a crystal. Kyber crystal. It's used to power up a lightsaber. And I keep doing that. I'm on the wrong side. Sorry, it's just like this side doesn't want to be leveled. See? And it's bothering. So I'm just gonna do it like that. No, just do it this way. So yeah. So Vader goes to Dagobah and he has a showdown with Yoda. And Yoda like uses the force to enter Vader's mind, and Vader's like, "What'd you do, you little elf?" He goes, "Oh, just your mind is twisted." And he has like specter of his past. So he fights Ben Kenobi, he fights Mace Windu, and then last one he fights is Qui-Gon Jinn. And they're like destroying his armor suit, and he when takes off the helmet, it becomes Anakin's regular face, and then he tells him like he's scared, and Yoda's like, "You don't have to be scared anymore." And then Vader says, "Oh, but you do," and he has like these creepy little demon eyes, and he uses that to, you know, slice off Yoda's hand. And so he ends up fighting Leia because he thinks Luke is alive up until Yoda tells him that your son died on Hoth, and he's like, "No, I felt him here." And then when he fights Leia, it's like, "Oh, I have a daughter." And then they fight a little bit, and they she cuts his arm off because why not? She's trying to save Yoda, and Vader like pops her in the face with his other hand, and he's talking to her, and then Han like Wild West just starts shooting because he gets there just in time, thinking Vader's gonna kill Leia. And Leia like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought he was gonna kill you." She's like, "Oh no, he was. Thanks." And so that happens, and then it ends with like Vader dying and Leia saying, "Thanks, Han." And like, "Okay, yeah, let's go save the galaxy." And they end up like walking out of Dagobah after Yoda tells her that she's the last Jedi that she has to find the others and teach them the way he taught her. And then they have the last page is them putting Vader's body on the pyre, and you can see Luke's face in the smoke. So yeah, the art in this is really good. Like it has that classic, well, to me, old school 2000 art style. So I love this. Big nostalgia, big fan of this. The story was really well written. I can't talk. Really well written, and I love it. It's a shame they didn't do like a different one, like more more versions of this. That'd be cool. I'm hoping Marvel does something like that. But yeah, this is a good one. I do love this one. Next one, I read. I read another one today, and I was like, "Oh, I'll do this one too." It's called Star Wars Tag and Bink. It's written by Kevin Rubio and drawn by Lucas Marangon. Now this is a funny one. I bought this one long time ago, just like with the Star Wars Infinities, but I bought this long time ago when I read just because I thought it'd be funny. I just saw the cover, like I saw Tag and Bink were here, and I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And I pulled it, and I was like, "Oh, look, it has like all the characters on it. That's so cool." And I was like, "I'll read this." And when I bought it, I was like reading it, and I was like, "Oh, dude, this is hilarious." So basically, it starts with these two as rebel soldiers on the Tantive 5, where the first scene in Empire, not Empire, I'm sorry, A New Hope, these two knuckleheads um, try to get off the ship. What they end up happening is they end up talking to some stormtroopers and they end up like knocking them out, taking their gear, and end up on the Death Star. And on the Death Star, they end up being basically they're in all the Star Wars film, they're the catalyst. They are more or less the reason why certain events happen. Like in this scene I'm about to bring up is when Kenobi is like uses the force to make the sound on the Death Star so you could turn off the power, and you see those two stormtroopers just like, oh hey, yeah, it's another drill. That's in this book. It's not canon, but it's funny. These two are those same exact stormtroopers that are just talking. And it turns out that Vader wanted that, as we know, Vader wanted that to happen. So they're like, okay, blah, blah, blah. They get reprimanded. They don't even work there. So they end up like switching suits to become TIE pilots. And they end up doing this battle where it makes it look like they died at the end of A New Hope, but they didn't. Because as the writer points out, oh, there were two sets of pilots behind them, and that's the author saying that. Like that's why they're alive. So they get blasted out. They're still a ship. They get blasted after the Death Star gets broken. Their hyperdrive breaks down, so they got to go to Yavin 5, where it'll take 2 to 3 months in regular space to fly there, and they don't make it. They get there like at the end where there's the Chewie's medals left behind, and they get attacked by none other than Boba Fett. And he tells them like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I heard Chewie, and I thought you guys are someone else." But they tie him up, they piss him off because now they fly away, and he's trying to kill him. They end up going to Cloud City, where they meet Lando, who's friends of theirs too. And Lando's like, "Oh hey guys, yeah, just this will even us out, right?" He goes, "Yeah, sure." Tag's like, "You dated both my sisters, sure. This will make us even." So in those events, they're the reason why 3PO ends up getting shot in that one scene, and he gets blown to bits on Cloud City. So they shoot him because they were the ones who 3PO was the one who ratted them out by accident. So that I thought that was humorous. So they ended up doing that, and they escape Cloud City and end up trying to rescue Han, and they all go to, you guessed it, Tatooine, and there they end up knocking out Boba Fett, taking his armor, and then they end up being, one ends up dressing up as Boba Fett, the other ends up being a skiff guard. I don't know if you can see it. Those two guys, which it's funny because they make comments here and they're like, "Oh yeah, what kind of lightsaber style is that? That he's just swinging around like a Wampa rat." And uh, one of them, the one who's dressed as Boba Fett, flies in there and tries to calm him down, and Solo knocks him into a Snorlax pit, and the other guy shoots Luke in the hand, who's aiming for the saber. And as the events go, same thing. They end up crashing. They escape there and trying to get their spy back to the rebellion. And what ends up happening, they end up getting ordered to be dressed up as the Emperor's guards, the guys in the red suit. And they're standing there in front of the elevator waiting, like watching as all this other stuff happens. And they watch Vader fight Luke, and then they watch Vader and Luke fight the Emperor. When the Emperor dies, and they end up dying in the Death Star, and they become back as Force Ghosts, which leads to the prequel. And I think it's funny because this is them as Force Ghosts, and one of them's like, "Wait, what?" So they were kids. They were Jedi Padawans at first, which they're the reason why in this non-canon book they erase the planet that Kenobi was looking for. I forget what it's called. Not Geonosis. The clone planet. I forget where it's at right now, but they erased it by accident because they're trying to study, and they end up like getting scared and going to Camino. That's what it was. They erased Camino by accident, so they end up flying, being stowaway on a ship where Anakin and Padme were going to Naboo. They convinced Anakin that they could help him score with Padme if he helps them with their issue that they erased the files. He's like, deal. So as you know, in Attack of the Clones, they end up leaving Naboo to go to Tatooine. So he leaves them there, and they're like, what a dungus. He left us here, no food, no ship, no nothing. So it takes them 3 years to get back to the temple, and this is what they come to. The Clone Wars ending, where they're just, the clones are killing everybody. And Anakin spares them because he says, "You guys gave me something special. Promise me you won't be Jedi, you won't do anything, and I'll let you live. But the next time I see you guys, you'll die." They're like, agreed. And then they decide, oh, we'll go to Tatooine. Tatooine's the quietest planet. No one can do anything there. I give that one a 2. Well, I love this too, so I don't give it a 2 out of 10. I give it like a 9 out of 10. Because again, it has that classic 2000-ish art style, 2005-ish art style. And the characters are wonky and hilarious, and it's really cool. And I love how they just fit. They fit in the universe at the time that was happening. It was so cool. Yeah, that's it. Those are the 2 I read this week. Next week, possibly, I'll do episode 3. We'll see. Until then, thank you for watching, and I'm signing off. Ciao for now.